Hello and welcome to Wands and Fronds, the weekly podcast where we cover magic, herbalism, and more. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Nick.
And we're your co-hosts. So today I'm talking about a bright, springy plant, lemongrass, also a Nick fave.
Oh my God, literally. I ate a Penang curry like 2 days ago.
It's so good. I'm also going to introduce you to the Roman Athena, Minerva.
Ooh, we love that. We love kind of a back-to-back sister moment.
I know it's going to feel very deja vu, but it's good to, I think, cover both because I'm assuming there are some people that probably work with the Roman deities. I mean, I don't know your practice.
Yeah. Anywho, so we're here. We're queer. I'm queer, and as part of our Sabbath revisit, so it's round 2 of the Sabbats. We've been doing this for over a year now. So
ding ding ding, round 2.
I'm going to be talking a bit more about Ostara.
Ooh, hey, I have 2 really cute little wooden bunnies that are on our table as part of our Ostara season centerpiece.
Love.
So yeah, they're very cute. They're very like Velveteen Rabbit, and it makes me happy. So I feel like, Nick, you had just mentioned this, but I feel like this is as good a time as any to introduce it as like part of our intro. So like,
yeah.
When this last week did you feel the most magical?
Okay, so actually I know the answer to this right off the top of my head. Friday. So Friday was actually kind of a weird day. It was like sort of gray and blustery here in Austin. But I had this surprise visit from one of my witch friends, friend of the pod, the haunted house episode, if you're on the Patreon, Eve, my friend Eve. So she was here in town just kind of last minute, and we had gone out, and I had really just thrown on like my hoodie and my beanie out of my bag so I didn't look like I was wearing my work clothes like out to a club.
But you looked so cute anyway.
I really did look cute. But no. So I walked in to this disco club, and I swear I was like the center of attention.
You had a little glamour magic moment.
Yeah, like literally, I was like, I'm like one of the top 5 hottest people here. Everyone's looking at me. Some like cute boy even came up and was like, I really like your jacket. And I was like, oh my God, like, who am I? But no, I felt so powerful. Like,
I love that. Like your Aphrodite moment.
Yes. So that's when I felt the most magical this week. Also, there was a lot of very gorgeous breezes that night when we were going out on the patio. So
I love that. Yeah, I feel like this last week has been so crazy busy with work, but then this morning actually I think is going to be mine because I was able to finally like slow down a little bit, which has been very tough to do for the past couple of weeks for me. So I put on a simmer pot with some mandarin peels and clove and cinnamon and a couple of bay leaves, like big prosperity energy because who doesn't need more money?
Well, and you had sent me that picture and I could like smell it through my phone.
Oh yeah, it's so good. Because last night I had my friend and friend of the podcast, Kelly, over, and we watched the ridiculous 1989 film Teen Witch and smoked hella like herbal joints. And one of my favorite stoner snacks for anyone who doesn't know this is like mandarin oranges because they're hydrating. They're good for any sort of like cotton mouth you get. And they're just like something about like fruit is so much sweeter when you're a little high. So we had a bunch of mandarin pills. So I did that. And then I also lit just a fuck ton of candles. So I like put on a simmer pot, lit a bunch of candles to do my research for this episode, and was just like really feeling my witchy self this morning. It's been a while. I feel like I've been in like corporate bitch mode, which is not my favorite. And it's very hard for me to like connect to my magical self when like my day job work is very difficult. So it was nice. It was really good to like have that this morning.
And or really, I was kind of jealous because my apartment smells like litter box right now. So
Oh God, that's the worst. We just got new litter. We tried doing the pretty litter, which I know people rave about pretty litter,
they
and like
do. They do.
I feel like maybe it's good if you don't have an old man cat who takes old man cat shits, and like you don't have a diabetic cat who, even while it's well managed, pees a lot. And like we have two cats, and it just did not work for us. Like it could not hang with our boys. We tried. It's great in theory,
I mean,
but
here's my thing too, though. Like, just while we're on the topic, is that Oliver likes to do this really crazy balancing act where he's like got all of his legs like lined up together, and he's just like hovering.
oh yeah, no, that's Samson too. Like he's afraid of getting in the litter box.
So, but as a result of this, the pee is just on the side of the litter box,
Yeah.
which means it kind of evaporates into the air. So it's like it really doesn't matter what's in the litter box. Like it could be the best thing, but it's still going to evaporate into the air because he doesn't pee on the litter. He pees on the edge
The
of the litter
side of the box.
So
Old man cats,
old
man.
man cats. What can you do? But no, I'm interested to hear about these magical qualities of lemongrass, which is
I
like
know, because you
famous-
use it a lot.
famously, I use it a lot. I mean, I have like my own sort of associations. I want to see how it lines up with the official word.
Yeah. So anytime I use lemongrass essential oil, it makes me think of Nick. But if you've ever eaten Thai food, you know about lemongrass, right? Or Cymbopogon citratus. I'm like, are there any other Tom Kha Gai lovers out there? Because it is one of my very favorite things in the world.
Actually, go ahead. I think this week's prompt for anyone who wants to write in, what's your Thai restaurant order? I want to know.
Ooh,
I want to. For me
yes.
personally, I just gonna jump in here. For me personally, it's a Penang curry, a
Hmm.
lot, but sometimes massaman curry. But I will say I like to make massaman curry. So if I'm ordering out, I usually go Penang or pad Thai, which I
Dude, pad
know
thai is great. We
pad
usually
Thai is
get
so good.
an order of pad thai. I mean, I love Tom Kha Gai. I also really love green curries. Green
Mm,
curry
mm,
is one of my
mm.
favorite things. And there's this Thai takeout place that we get that serves it with like fry bread. And it is just
Oh,
like,
oh,
mwah, like
oh.
big chunks of eggplant in the green curry with the fry bread is just like, if you've ever had a hangover and wanted something for it, like
That
that's it.
that no, the other speaking of fry bread though, the other night when I got my Penang curry, sorry y'all, I had saved the broth because it's like I'd eaten all of the like chicken out, but I had the broth and it had the kaffir lime leaves in it,
Oh
and
my God, which are so good.
it just smelled like lemongrass as well. And I was like, I could use this broth or something, or just like put a scoop of rice in and
Yeah.
have it for like lunch. So I saved my little broth. And I didn't end up making rice. What I did was I had all of this cheesy Texas toast in my freezer.
Oh, yum.
And so I made like a plate of cheesy Texas toast and just dipped it in the curry broth, and heaven.
Mwah. Oh my God, that
Heaven,
sounds
heaven is a place on earth.
so good. Well, and so lemongrass is great though, because like not only is it good in food, but it also has some like super impressive bacterial inhibiting powers. So the food industry also uses it sometimes for preservation purposes for like cowpea and maize. So it's also great to know that that's in leftovers, because there was this really crazy story this week about a guy that got bacterial meningitis from leftover Chinese food, which is terrifying. And like, it was a perfect storm apparently, but it made me very happy that we order so much Thai food, because I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, lemongrass, get in there, do your work. So it is of course native to India, but it's also found throughout the more tropical parts of Asia. Cymbopogon is like a pretty big species. Today we're focusing on citratus, but there are a few different species in the lemongrass family, and some of them are like more purpley, some of them are more red. They're all over the place in like really tropical areas of the greater Asian continent. Lemongrass is also, though, a fantastic insect repellent, and it's a great alternative to DEET-based products because Ew. And this is that time of year. So, Eric went to a barbecue with a couple of friends last week and has like monster mosquito bites after being outside. And we all know how bad mosquitoes are. So you can actually make a really great repellent at home using lemongrass, thyme, lavender, and peppermint essential oils diluted into a carrier oil. Or you can make them into a salve and like enjoy your summer barbecues without a side of itchiness. Because fuck bug bites. There's nothing more irritating than being itchy. Like, oh, it's the worst.
And the way mosquitoes will just go for like the spot that will make you the itchiest, like the back of your knee.
Oh my God, what is it?
Why? The ankle. Why?
I got one on my forehead 2 weeks ago, and it was like infuriating.
It's like, take the blood. Take the blood. Honestly, I could give two shits. But like, go for the wrist. Go for somewhere that's not going to itch for like a million years.
Yeah. It's going to itch until you like scratch it and bruise it. It's horrible.
Rude.
I do feel like I need to point out, though, like a little disclaimer, the insect repellent properties of lemongrass are only active like once the leaves are crushed, which is why the essential oil is so good for it. Because sometimes you'll see people that are like, oh, just plant lemongrass around your porch to help repel bugs. And it doesn't work like that. It's a great way to have lemongrass on hand, which is awesome. It's not going to do shit for your mosquitoes. But again, this is one that you can totally grow at home. So let's talk about it. It's a delicate perennial grass that will die off in cold winters. So you can either grow it as an annual, or you can put it like in a container so you can bring it indoors to overwinter it. And lemongrass grows in these like dense clumps with strap-shaped leaves that can actually grow up to 6 feet tall, and they're only like 1 inch wide. It's crazy. Like lemongrass can get very big. And because they do get to be so large, you actually only need 1 or 2 seedlings to take care of your needs for basically an entire year for your household. You can harvest it throughout the summer, and you can freeze it to make sure your winter stews have a lemony kick. Like,
oh yeah,
right? Throwing some fresh lemongrass, like, well, not fresh, frozen from fresh lemongrass into like a big pot of like beef stew in the winter. Yes. And you can actually totally just freeze the fresh stalks whole, or you can take the tops and dry them and chop them and like put them in a container, and they'll keep their flavor for up to a year. So it is something that you can preserve pretty easily. And you just want to plant it up in like the plushest garden bed, right? So you're thinking about like rich, moist soil. If you're going to do it in containers, same thing. Remember, these are like tropical plants, so they are used to things being a little bit more damp kind of all around. So you're not going to want to let them totally dry out. And they do best if they don't have a lot of competition. So this really is like an ideal candidate for container gardening if you're one of those people. You can take it and put it in like a garden bed, but I'd suggest maybe putting it in like its own garden bed, or doing one of those, you can do the borders that you get kind of down into the ground a little bit to where you can keep other things from coming into the garden bed. A lot of people do that with bamboo, but you could do that with lemongrass more to keep other things from getting in, because lemongrass just really doesn't do well with competition. But do be careful when you're harvesting it, because the fresh leaves can actually like slice your fingers up and give you almost like paper cuts. I don't know if you've ever handled like the grass, Nick, but it has kind of sharp edges.
I was gonna say I have in tea form. Like we used to have this lemongrass tea. I will say though, at that point it was already kind of cut into like little inch-ish long pieces. So it could fit in a tea strainer. So yeah, I never had to deal with like getting like sort of processing it myself.
Yeah. Well, if you do, be careful.
But it does get, when it's dried out, quite rigid. So I can see kind of what you're talking about.
We'll slice you up. Be careful.
It's like when you dry it, and like other leaves, like oat straw, let's say, which was also sort of famously in this blend. If you like take the little piece of oat straw and like do one of these, it'll just kind of break and crumble. Like,
yeah. Like it gets very brittle,
but yeah, kind of crumbly even. But the lemongrass does kind of stay kind of rigid and stiff. And yeah, I could easily see if you were like breaking up the actual whole piece of it. Yeah, just kind of, yeah.
You can cut yourself.
She's tough. She's stringy. Like even when you're cooking with it.
Oh yeah.
It's actually really hard to get like
Have you
tiny
ever
little,
had like a chunk of like lemongrass stalk that ends up in your curry or something and you don't
yeah.
catch it and then you're chewing on it and you're like, oh, yeah, I could chew on this for 4,000
Yeah,
years
yeah,
and it
yeah,
would
yeah.
still be here.
It's the only plant that I think can compete with like gristle as far as like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
the gristle of the plant world.
Truly. So let's talk though about the medicinal properties, right? So disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. Nick's not a doctor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please don't use a fucking podcast to diagnose or treat yourself. Talk to your medical doctor before you embark on any sort of herbal regimens. You know, be smart about it. So lemongrass, though, native to India, we mentioned, it's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to treat everything from weak connective tissues to digestive problems to varicose veins. Like it is kind of a bit of a cure-all in Ayurveda. I did mention earlier its antibacterial properties, and they've done studies that show lemongrass is effective against some super baddies, including Staphylococcus aureus, Bacillus cereus, and Escherichia coli, E. coli. And we have seen these bacteria becoming more and more antibiotic resistant, especially recently. So this is really good news. And in one study, they actually diffused lemongrass and geranium essential oils in a hospital burn unit, which it's very important for burn units to be kept sterile. And they found it reduced airborne bacteria by nearly 90%, including airborne MRSA.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah. Like this is
Also,
this
I
is
bet that
badass
smelled
stuff.
so good.
Right, geranium and lemongrass. I'm like that. Of course, be careful with, diffusing essential oils if you have pets. I think we've talked about this before, but like the smell of those two, and it's gonna like destroy MRSA.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. Well, don't sign me up because I don't want to be in a burn ward.
Truly, I just want to smell it. I just want to
I'm
smell
sure
this area.
Smelled great.
Yeah. So several of the Cymbopogon species are antifungal as well, and they are used to treat things like ringworm and oral thrush, like candida overgrowth. Usually they either do like diluted essential oils, or sometimes in India, they'll actually make a paste using the leaves and apply it like directly to ringworm. And in Ayurveda, the oil is used to stimulate circulation. And when you stimulate the circulation system, it can actually help reduce joint inflammation, which is really important for people with arthritis, because you want to make sure that you're getting a lot of heat to those joints so things don't get cold and, hard and swollen. The pain relieving properties, though, also make it a great candidate for menstrual cramps. And here I was thinking like a tea of red raspberry leaf and dried lemongrass would be delicious and would definitely, for most people, I would assume, help with your menstrual pain. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but for me, on the first couple of days of my period, when I feel like curling up in a ball and dying, I love red raspberry leaf tea. I also take a mugwort tincture, but now I'm definitely going to get some lemongrass for next round to add into it, because red raspberry leaf can be a little bitter. And that's one of the great things about adding lemongrass to herbal teas is it can kind of help balance that out with all of the citrus notes. So it's a really great additive to herbal blends if you've got something that is like not super tasty. And the lemony smell is like really special, right? That citrusiness. And it's included in a lot of beauty products, but you'll usually see it listed as oil of verbena. So if you see that, it's almost always lemongrass essential oils. So you can make a tea, of course, by using just a teaspoon of the dried leaves, but adding it to food is really like, I think, the most fun way to add it to your diet. You can, of course, like add it to all of your curries, but I love the idea of packing fresh leaves into sugar to make like a lemony lemongrass sugar, or you can infuse honey with the leaves. But actually, like my very favorite thing I saw is I have this book by Maria Noel Groves, the Grow Your Own Herbal Remedies. She recommends like lining the bottom of a cake tin with lemongrass leaves and then pouring like vanilla or yellow cake batter on it and baking it and getting that like lemongrass infusion in the cake.
That'd be such a good tea cake.
Right?
Like a lemongrass lavender tea cake.
Like I was thinking lavender, or even you could do like an infusion of like rosemary and like an icing drizzle on top and get like,
Hook me up. That sounds
right?
so good.
Ugh, yummy. Okay, but what about the magic? Because Nick and I could talk about food all day, but this is not our food podcast. Lemongrass is associated with the air element and the planet Mercury. Traditionally, it's used for psychic and lust magics and repelling snakes, like you do. So I think this one, of course, is like a great candidate to partner with magically by planting it around your home, which is also allegedly going to help repel snakes. I wouldn't do this as your primary form of snake prevention if that's what you need. But in Mexican folk magic and hoodoo, lemongrass is also used a lot for cleansing, which I think makes sense with all of that citrus note. It's like nothing to me smells cleaner than lemony stuff. Like that just smells clean.
It's like the lemon pledge effect.
Yeah, exactly. When something smells citrusy, it's like that can't be dirty.
No.
And because of those associations, it's I think a really great ingredient if you're doing like a road opening spell, like helping you turn bad luck, trying to get the tide turning in your direction, road opening plus lemongrass. But it also has the associations with Mercury. We know Mercury is the master of disguise, which means I think lemongrass would be right at home in glamour magic. Hi.
Speaking of, and can I just say, lemongrass is what I wear as cologne. So there's a 100% chance that I was wearing lemongrass when I was like at that club this weekend, and I felt gorgeous and like the hottest person in the room. So
yeah,
they're proof positive even.
Right. And I do have to say, like, I wrote this before Nick and I talked about this. So This was not planned. But
it never is, but it always seems like it is because we're just intuitive people. Sorry.
We are. Sorry, guys. That's why we're doing a podcast for y'all. So, but in addition to, of course, using it in your beauty products, because I often will add lemongrass to like my body oil that I body oil with. And people are always like, oh, you smell so good. And I'm like, I know lemongrass. But I was thinking, if you're getting ready to go out for the night, what about making yourself a tea with rose and lemongrass to enjoy as you're getting yourself all made up, like relishing in that like Aphrodite glamour magic, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like perfume for your guts too.
Yeah, and lemongrass is so good for digestion too. So if you're prone to any upset tummy, no one feels sexy when your tummy's grumbling.
No,
so
every Virgo knows this.
Yeah, and the psychic associations mean I have to recommend it for a dream or a sleep sachet. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules, but it makes sense.
But you also do still have to take a drink. So.
Yeah, you do still have to take a drink. And I was thinking, if you want to have prophetic dreams specifically about love or do sex magic in your sleep, I love the idea of making a sleep sachet using lemongrass, rose, and rose quartz. Mm-hmm. Like, how sexy would that sleep sachet be? Like, if you want guaranteed nighttime eruptions, make this sleep sachet.
Oh my God.
Like, I can almost promise you. Like, that's so hot, that combination.
That's
horny.
I was like, that's a horny combo.
Yeah, like throw in a cinnamon stick, just light the bed on fire. Anyway.
Yeah, shit.
And that's all she wrote. So my sources today were Grow Your Own Herbal Remedies by Merino Groves, The Herbarium, all of their great monographs. Thanks, Emma, for giving me a year-long subscription to that for Christmas. I don't think she listens, but hey, thank you. And Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs and acreativeapothecare.com.
Ooh, and we love Cunningham's too, so.
Thanks, Cunningham.
Okay, so you guys, we gotta dive in. This is a Sabbath episode. And actually, I feel like I have a little less to talk about with this one, and I think you guys will see why, but okay, Witches of the Potosphere. Can you really believe that we are doing an episode about Ostara again?
No, we cannot.
Believe it, okay? Seriously though, if you are not caught up at the moment but are somehow listening to this episode first, like, welcome. But for this round of Sabbath episodes, we're looking at the historical roots of Ostara, because in the first episode, we've talked about how we can celebrate Ostara and a little bit of the mythology as it ties into that. And so this time we're going to be talking about history and how Ostara came to be, what it is in this, the year of our Lord, 2022. But at the top of this segment, the spring equinox in astrology traditionally means the start of Aries season. Full stop.
Right? That's also our astrological new year, y'all.
It's astrological new year.
The
So
season of the Nick.
the season of the Nick. Welcome to gorgeous springtime hell, the rest of you.
Put on your lemongrass perfume and feel the beauty.
Feel the fire. But so, as you all may remember from the Mabon episode specifically, something we occasionally run into once we start digging into the roots of these Sabbats is that we find ourselves in the groovy witch spaces of the 60s and 70s when people are trying to create a cohesive modern witches calendar out of what is oftentimes a chaotic, fractured, and oftentimes unwritten even source material. So there's a lot going on, which again, think of Mabon. They kind of plucked some random Welsh hero and we're like, that's the name of the Sabbath.
And so mote it be, bitches.
Which, absolutely is not to say that the spring equinox itself is not an ancient pagan holiday. In fact, we know this was a highly sacred and important day because there's a Stonehenge alignment. So Stonehenge, super fucking old.
Kind of a big deal. You've probably heard of her.
So yeah, we know that it's there. And obviously, if we look at like other Celtic monumental architecture as well, we absolutely know that equinoxes and solstices are like big ticket holidays in these before times, the Celtic times, the Anglo-Saxon times, like the pre-modern,
pre-Gregorian calendar times.
Pre-Gregorian calendar times. Thank you so much. But what does that have to do with Ostara? And, fuck you, I'm fucking getting to it.
Jesus my God, Christ. Y'all give Nick a moment. Jesus.
Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and burst some of y'all's bubble. Now, as far as naming conventions go, yes, this was sort of slapped on in the 60s instead of having a named spring equinox holiday, which really just was not testing well with the...
It's hard to write a jingle for that.
Yeah. But like in the Mabon episode, it still kind of opens the door to some interesting questions about how Ostara as we know it came to be and why that was the face that we chose to put on the spring equinox as a Sabbath. So here's what we do know in an evidence-based way. So the spring equinox as a celebration has traditionally had this theme of fertility and rebirth, which is something you can see across a broad spectrum of world cultures, which I'm actually going to talk about that sort of towards the end of the segment as well, is sort of some other sort of cross-cultural spring equinox stuff. And I think an important thing to remember as we're talking about the history of these things, that when we talk about, say, the Anglo-Saxons, we know a bit about how they celebrated other important times of the year to them. So we know a bit of the flavor of what might have been going on vis-a-vis, it's a lot like what we know about the Celtic holidays and the Norse holidays. So we know there was bonfires, we know there was hand fastings, we know there was feasting, sacred well visitation, and all of that great stuff that would have been par for the course in like any Northern European festivity. And actually, as well, I think it's good to really acknowledge that these people, sort of our ancestors even, were absolutely hand-to-mouth people. And while this Sabbath represents so much that is good and fresh and energizing, this part of the year meant lots and lots of work to be done. This is sort of like a planting season Sabbath.
Sowing seeds, baby.
Sowing seeds, which really, is such a beautiful symbolic thing, but it was hard work, honey. It was a lot. You have to catch up from the winter now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about like shepherds, famously a lot of sheep in Anglo-Saxon culture, but it's like we got to fatten the sheep back up. We have to.
Yeah.
Like they're
It's like
absolutely starving to death.
if you wanted to think about it in like the lunar cycle, like spring is the waxing phase of the year before
Uh-huh.
we get to like the full moon of summer. So things are building, which means shit to do.
Right. And I guess sort of all of that to say it really would not have been just an excuse to party. I feel like there are actually other Sabbats in the Wheel of the Year that are a lot more focused on celebration, and I think
Yeah.
those sort of more like Yule, where it's like the harvest is done, honey. You don't have shit to do except
Yeah.
drink some mead and have a bonfire.
But we're just trying not to die at Yule time, y'all.
We're just trying not to die, so you might as well have a party. But
Exactly.
this is sort of a working holiday. Yeah, it's a busy time. It's a very busy time. So like even though that may be what's in your heart during the feistiness of Aries season, it's always good to take a moment to be respectful of the tradition of it all and sort of what it actually would have meant back then for it to be the spring equinox and like what was sort of coming
Yeah.
up for them at the time, like like this ancestral energy.
I
So
feel like the feistiness of Aries, though, too, is just like a reminder that Aries is also the
the
initiator.
initiator, yeah, it's like we need that energy. We need that
Yeah.
energy because there's shit to do.
Aries is the like frantic energy. Like Aries is the frantic, manic energy that allows the rest of the year to fucking happen.
Right. You got to start with a bang.
Yeah.
March comes in like a lion,
Yeah.
comes out like a lamb. And somewhere in the middle, it's the spring equinox. So,
Transformative.
but that still doesn't quite explain Ostara. So, I mean, but we're getting there. We're getting there. We can have to set you up for it, right? So, for that story, we have to go way past the 1960s, though, thankfully, because this is not, something that they really did just pull out of their ass. And we're talking about the 8th century CE, current era. So, and this nerdy little monk called Bede the Venerable, which, it means he's trustworthy, supposedly.
Hey, Bede.
So Bede the the honorable Judge Bede. No, Bede the Venerable was making a survey of all of the current holidays and their history in his own time. And of course, as a Christian monk, this was absolutely always going to be from a Christian perspective. But here's kind of the shady thing. So actually, first, his writings about the history of Easter is the earliest mention we can find of Estra or Ostara, which is the anglicized version of Estra. So in his version of Easter History 101, he traces its pagan roots back to this Anglo-Saxon goddess of the moon, fertility, light, and spring, Estra, which is really cool. And it just fits perfectly because her symbols as a fertility goddess are the rabbit and the egg, which, speaking of rabbits and eggs, a little rabbit trail, if you will. So my head kind of exploded when I realized that Estra and estrogen are linguistically related. And
What?
so now you guys have to make a dumb face too, because I was literally like, and I'm still kind of like,
I know, right?
and also sharing a root word with ostrich. So if you ostriches famously lay giant eggs, so there you go.
Big eggs.
But no, so we have Bede talking about Estra, and really no one else. There's no source material. There's no source material. There's no
The boldness to just write shit down like it's fact. I mean, we act like fake news and misinformation is new,
right.
but here we have Bede the Venerable, just like that sounds likely.
And the goddess's name sounds like Easter. This is one of those situations where it's the opposite of like every other Sabbath, where it's like a Christian guy came up potentially, and like I take the side of the witches here, where it's like it's nice to like have a face for unnamed spring equinox holiday,
Yeah.
but this guy might have just made up a pagan goddess.
Wouldn't
And
be the
then
weirdest thing the Christians did.
named her after the Christian holiday that is supposedly based on her holiday. Absolutely psycho. Absolutely
Yeah.
psycho.
It's like, this is totally a snake eating its tail.
But so what they do say, though, and what can sort of be agreed upon, is that there was a spring equinox holiday that was sort of devoted to Freya, which might have had like a Germanic and Anglo-Saxon counterpart that may or may not have been named something like Estra. But we don't know, because this one guy wrote this down in the 8th century. And then that's kind of like the source that other people are looking at, because it is such an old source. But even he was writing about it after the fact. And so
it's a little sus.
It's a little sus. And I would say, it's semi-historical at best. And I think in a way it was almost like shoehorned, right? Where it was like, it's a convenient pagan origin story for Easter traditions that is mostly based on Freya's spring equinox holiday. But they didn't, I guess, want to talk about it being Freya's spring equinox holiday. Like, you just kind of made up this other thing. But there you have it, folks. So it's like the reverse Yule, right? It's like reverse Yule. They kind of came up with Estra to explain Easter, and I guess just get Freya out of the picture. I'm really not sure why they were just so against saying that it was sort of a remnant of a Freya cult practice, but
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's honestly no weirder though. Like, Eric and I were just joking about this at Target. We're just like, oh, look, all of the chicks and like rabbits are out for Jesus.
For Jesus, yeah. And which, just to kind of, I feel like we did tell this story in the original Ostara episode, but I'm gonna tell it again because like,
it's been a year. You can listen to it again.
It's been a year. You can listen to it again. But yeah. Anywho, so the story goes is that Estra sees this wounded bird who's also like about to freeze to death. Okay. And she's a powerful goddess. She's gonna heal that bird. She's gonna heal that bird, and the bird's gonna live. And that's great. But here's the thing. In order to save the bird, she has to turn the bird into a rabbit. But okay, so here's the thing, and it's not really explained why she can't just heal the bird. She can't just heal the bird with magic.
It's because it's a dinosaur.
True. So she has to turn it into a rabbit,
a mammal,
which she can then heal. But then I'm also like, it's cold. They do mention that the bird is like freezing to death. So maybe a mammal just for warm-bloodedness and fur, which must have been very helpful and to the dying bird. But so basically you have this rabbit, this bird that has been turned into a rabbit, and but for some reason the magic doesn't work all the way, and then the rabbit still lays eggs. And and that's the Easter bunny.
There's somewhere out there, I don't know if my Nana has it, there's a picture of me and my sister with one of those like bunny characters, and she's like scream crying because Morgan was so afraid of like the giant characters when people like dress up as them. Morgan is just like scream crying in this photo of us like sitting on the Easter bunny's lap, and it is iconic.
Morgan is so funny. But no, so that's really what I have as far as like the history of Ostara, and then obviously listen to the other Ostara episode if you want to know more about how to celebrate. But I thought kind of a fun way to round out this episode would be to talk about some other spring equinox traditions. And so I kind of picked two. And so the two that I picked is Nowruz, which is the Persian holiday. So I thought I really like this story too, because it just screams Aries, like, or like some kind of fire sign, right? So we have to talk about King Jamshid, and I hope I'm saying that right, but I maybe I'm not. But King Jamshid, I think it's long A.
Jamshid sounds better.
Jamshid, yeah. So this is sort of based in like the 11th century. King Jamshid was Zoroastrian king of Persia. So this is like post-Zoroastrianism. And basically there was this prophecy that there was going to be a winter that was going to wipe out all of mankind and life on Earth in general, right? So, sort of like nuclear winter even. Like the apocalypse. And King Jamshid is like, I'm going to save the day. Well, how does he save the day? Basically, he gathers up all of these precious jewels and gemstones and shit and makes a like glowing gemstone throne, and then has demons fly him up into the sky so he can replace the sun and keep the winter at bay.
That's so fucking cool.
To which all of the people and creatures on Earth, as a sign of thanks, gather up more gems to kind of throw at him in honor of taking the place of the sun, so to keep the eternal winter at bay. And so he has demons fly him up into the sky on his jewel encrusted throne, and then people throw more jewels at him.
Yeah, so and, to celebrate, you could send us a bag of fucking rubies.
Send us a bag of rubies. Wouldn't that be seasonal and appropriate? But no, Nowruz is like Persian New Year, because it's like the Zodiac New Year as well. So it's celebrated like on the 20th, and Ostara's on the 21st or 22nd. And so it's like, almost a century old, or almost 1,000 years old. I'm so sorry, like almost 10 centuries old, this celebration. And I love Persian food, so it's like I was like, ooh, we got to tell the story. But can you imagine anything more Aries than making a throne out of gemstones?
No, I cannot.
Having everyone worship you as the sun.
I don't think anything more Aries than that exists in the world.
And also by demons, not angels. Angels are not coming down and flying you into the sky. It's demons.
Well, because demons are here to fucking work. Angels are here to look weird with all their eyeballs.
That's true. Be not afraid.
Be not afraid of this giant eyeball monster.
But kind of going back to the beginning of the segment too, I also wanted to talk about Chichen Itza, the big stone pyramid in Mexico.
Chichen Itza is so cool.
And actually, so here's something that's like really, really interesting. So we're talking about this sort of monumental architecture of like Stonehenge and like Celtic passage tombs. And so this is a huge piece of monumental architecture that is still standing to this day. And the way that it is built on the day of the spring equinox, which actually, for everyone that does not remember, the equinox is perfectly half and half, day and night, right? So that's a big deal in and of itself. It's all about balance even. But on the day of the spring equinox, the way that the pyramid at Chichen Itza is built, it creates a shadow on that day of like a serpent creeping up the stairs. And so they have all of this serpent lore in Aztec and Mayan culture, so you have like the feathered serpent, you have like cosmic serpent, like serpents could be seen as kind of like dragons even, although they are famously from a part of the world where there's actually like pythons and shit. So, um, like maybe they were thinking also about like a real life kind of serpent. But yeah, but the way the shadow is, it looks like a snake is going up the stairs throughout the day, and I think it's cool that that trick kind of still works all these like hundreds and hundreds of years later. And it's actually a popular equinox spot, like observation spot to this day. Like big crowds gather. So like if you don't live in Europe and you want kind of like a Stonehenge like equinox experience, you can get that vibe in Chichen Itza in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, you could do Chichen Itza and then go to Teotihuacan and go see the pyramids of the sun and of the moon.
Yeah.
Which are, LACMA did an exhibition on Teotihuacan, and I really want to go. It's like an hour outside of Mexico City, and the Pyramid of the Moon, fun facts, is older than the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan. And it's considered like, it's like one of the, it's like that and Teotihuacan. Like Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza are like, if you want to do an archaeological visit to Mexico, those two sites are going to be fucking epic.
Oh yeah. But especially for the equinox, because you got your snake going up the stairs, which
so cool.
Like I've seen pictures of it. Like I just think it's neat that it still works. That like
they did a good job.
So to all of you ancient Aztec pyramid builders,
we salute you.
But no, just to kind of say, like, just to kind of finish here, like, we really don't do these segments to kind of like shit on the witches in the 60s and 70s who were kind of like doing reconstruction of like the Wheel of the Year and, like trying to find coherence in the chaos.
Reconstructionism is very difficult, and it's like, it's so much easier to critique than to do it. It's like, yeah, you fucking build a religion.
Yeah, and I think, if we do kind of look at Ostara as kind of like a proxy for Freya and just sort of like a pan Northern European fertility goddess, it's like we really don't need to like we can let sleeping dogs lie, Yeah,
I mean, so in my personal practice, because I can only speak to myself, the way that I use the Wheel of the Year, I don't do big things at all of the Sabbats. I mean, I do love the equinoxes and the solstices. I think obviously that's where some of my like more Celtic roots come in sometimes. But like, to me, the solstices and the equinoxes are really easy to hit because they're just like, I don't know, it's like there's an astrological significance to them. But I really do just use it mostly as like a way to mark the passage of time, right?
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's what the Wheel of the Year is about. It's about
and that's what
the turning of time, the seasons, recognizing changes, taking moments to check in. But like, I don't know, I think it's a bit of a fallacy to think that either you're all in or you're all out with the Sabbats.
Right. So, but, like we wanted to, a little bit of Sabbat history. And you got it. You got your little bit of Sabbath history.
Yeah. So. And to finish, we've got did Faye step on your computer?
Oh yeah. So Faye actually wanted me to say x equal sign. So
thank you, Faye. A message from Faye.
A message
straight
from
to our
Faye.
listeners.
Straight to the listeners.
Cat owners everywhere will understand what happened there. So before we go on, we wanted to just like take a break to do our plugs.
Oh yeah.
So Patreon, guys, I know we owed you 2 episodes in February, and I have the second episode from February that I have not posted yet. I will get it up hopefully today, which is Sunday. Work has been eating me alive, so I apologize for the delay in that, but we're going to record another episode in March. It was It's kind of a fun episode, I think. It's a bit of a show and tell. Nick and I give you like a mini tour of our spaces and show you some of our magical areas, which I think is cool.
Yes.
We've got a special appearance by friend of the pod, Bridget, which is like my favorite thing in the world. So if you want to check stuff like that out, you can join our Patreon. It's patreon.com/wandsandfronspod. It's also a really great way to support us, guys. Like the little things that you might not think about with podcasts that add up, like paying for podcast hosting, like putting this thing together every week. It's like, it's not 100% free to us.
No. It
really helps.
It's a passion project and a labor of love. So
a labor of love that is still a labor. So, you know, your membership means a lot to us. Like
for the price of a medium coffee.
Yeah, of one medium coffee. Like, please buy us a coffee. We hope that we give you more than like one coffee's worth of enjoyment a month. So yeah, that's patreon.com/wandsandfronspod. The other thing you can do that's totally free, rate, review, subscribe.
Rate, review, subscribe. And you know, if you're feeling social, if you want to tell us your Thai restaurant order is
because we want to know
the prompt this week. Wands and Fronds Pod at Wands and Fronds Pod on Instagram. Easy peasy. wandsandfronspod@gmail.com. And it's Wands and Fronds Pod on Facebook as well, right?
I think it's Wands and Fronds Podcast.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Okay, so it's Wands and Fronds Podcast on Facebook.
Just do a little Facebook search. You'll find us.
I'm pretty sure if you looked up Wands and Fronds Pod, like it would probably still pull us up.
Yeah. So, and we got a very special shout out on Instagram this week that I just wanted to thank her. And I'm sorry, I had it pulled up and then closed my phone. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm going to find this because it just meant so much to me to like see us getting shouted out. Okay. So Confidently Lynn, who is super great. She's an intuitive confidence coach working with Gen Xers and millennial moms. But she gave us a shout out on her Instagram and it really like, it meant a lot. It made me and Nick so happy to like know that someone was enjoying it.
To know that someone was enjoying it. And also, you know, we have our little community of people that, you know, kind of stay in contact and are like, I don't want to say OG fans, but like y'all know who you are, like the OG fans, where it's like I would kind of expect that kind of thing from one of y'all, but getting the shout out from someone who's not someone who like writes in,
not someone we like we know super well, but like. Anyway, so just thank you, Confidently Lynn. That meant a lot. It just like really made our day.
Thank you so much, and like. Feel free to hit us up. Like, you know, we'd love to say hey.
We're always doing interviews for the Patreon. So, you know, maybe come on, be interviewed by us for our Patreon subscribers. Anyway, so I think that covers it for.
And we got to talk about, well, because we're having this like sister moment, you know, where they're like standing
sister. So like never knew how much I missed her. Shaking up the family tree with sibling synchronicity. Yeah. I should not know that.
It was you absolutely should, because I will say underrated show and one of my favorites from when I was a kid, and no one else would watch it with me because I don't know, it's like I think my younger siblings were maybe just a bit too young to give a shit about Sister.
God, I loved it though.
But it was
Go home, Roger.
But it was like literally like we were the target demographic for Sister, and so, you know,
one of my favorite celebrity sightings in LA is I saw Tia Mowry at the Grove in line to like get pictures of Santa and her kids, which was like, I didn't say anything, but we made eye contact. And it was like, I know who you are. And she was like, I know you know me, but I'm with my kids. And I was like, I respect that. And that's all that we said with our eyes.
You said it with your eyes.
Yeah. So let's talk about Minerva. So Minerva, she's the Roman goddess of wisdom, but like Athena, she's also a goddess of war, and in particular, war strategy, which is very Roman.
I do want to do a shout out to Rhiannon, who I don't think listens to the pod, but her cats are named Athena and Minerva.
Okay, well, I feel like Rhiannon should listen to the pod, but love
yeah.
her, love her. So she's also the goddess of trade and arts, and we know that the Romans loved to take on Greek deities. Minerva's no exception. Some of the Romans would even say that like they're the same deities that just had different names. But a lot of it does kind of seem a little bit like theft. But you know, I mean, cultural exchange, we'll call it. But
yeah, exchange.
Minerva is also, though, often portrayed wearing a chiton, which is a Greek garment. So, like, they didn't just take her. She's also, like, dressed up like a Greek, almost always. Like, they didn't even redress her. She's also often shown offering an olive branch to defeated enemies, and she's said to have a lot of sympathy for those armies that she beat. So, like, she's sweet. She's benevolent. And after Athena began to influence Minerva, her symbol became the owl, which we know today still represents wisdom. Shout out to Hootie. And she also gained, hey, Hootie. Minerva also gained a backstory that's going to sound awfully familiar. So she was born when her father, Jupiter, swallowed her mother, Metis. He did this because of a prophecy that his child would one day defeat him. And while inside Jupiter, Metis forged weapons for the baby Minerva. And that constant noise gave Jupiter a terrible headache. And he asked another god, Vulcan, to hit his head with a hammer and split it open, which works. And then Minerva comes out fully grown from Jupiter's forehead.
Well, this is a completely different story. First of all, it's a hammer and not an axe.
You're right.
And everyone has different names. So...
You're right. This is a new story. She also had the weapons and armor that her mother had made for her. Another story from Ovid's famous book, Metamorphosis. In this book, a young woman named Arachne brags about her weaving skills, saying that they're even better than Minerva's. And Minerva gets a little pissed off about that and challenges Arachne to a weaving competition. So we get some details here that Minerva wove a tapestry that featured herself beating all the other gods in a competition. And around the edges of the tapestry were figures of people who challenged the gods and lost. And Arachne chose to depict the gods in various forms, tricking humans. And Arachne's work was truly an exceptional piece of art, but Minerva, of course, declared herself the winner and knocked Arachne on the head 3 times and turned her into a spider to punish her for her unwise boast. Never heard that one.
Which, again, very different story. I will say, though, such a strong lesson of don't challenge gods.
Yeah, don't do it. When the devil went down to Georgia, he was looking for a soul to steal, and he was in a bind.
He was in a bind. But no, it's like literally just lose. Or
just
lose.
Just
be, it's like you really just have to be like, you know what? I'm not going to engage with this because I'm going to lose.
You can just be like, I'm the best of the humans.
Yeah.
Just with that caveat.
Even if it's true that your tapestry was better.
It's fine.
You can't just say that to a god. The fuck is wrong with you?
So we have one more story here, though, that is also drawn from Greek mythology. The gods one day decided to have a contest to see who could create the most useful item for humans. Neptune made a horse. So now we know that Neptune was like the very first horse girl in Roman mythology. But also like inventing horses is pretty clutch for like a militaristic society. But Minerva created the olive tree, which brought olive oil to the Mediterranean. And so she won while also influencing some super fucking tasty food. So you want to work with Minerva, so you tend to practice with the Roman deities as opposed to the Greek. You can really kind of stick with similar things that you would work with Athena on, and I'll link that episode here. You can like call on her help during studies, or if you have an important test coming up. She is also a ruler of crafting, so it made me think of like friend of the pod Shannon, like calling on someone like Minerva or Athena when you're like crafting, when you're creating things like your beautiful necklaces. You can also like she's a battle strategist, right? So you can call on her. To me, I was like, she's an ideal friend for the corporate world, right? Like battle strategy and corporate bullshit go hand in hand. I've been really drowning at work, if you can't tell. And of course, with the olive oil tie-in, I do like the idea of making an olive oil cake as an offering. How cute is that?
Which also delicious, like a lemon olive
Yeah.
oil cake.
Oh my
Like
God.
get fucked, so good.
Or you could like line the cake tin with lemongrass leaves and then pour the olive oil cake batter into it. Fuck me up.
Fuck
Of,
me up.
of course, you can represent her with owls or weaponry. And Romans celebrated Minerva's main festival on March 19th, but June 13th, which is known as the Quinquatris, is also sacred to her. So those are like really good auspicious days if you want to like honor her. Like if you're into working with Minerva, March 19th, that's coming up. That's like Minerva's like main festival. They'd get together. There'd be like poetry and hunting and like all sorts of festivities and drinking and fun. So like, you know, party on March 19th if you want to celebrate basically the spring equinox with Minerva.
Yeah, like 3 days before the spring.
Yeah.
So
that's her. It might have sounded a little familiar, but like,
yeah.
you know, I'm assuming there might be some people that do work with the Roman deities. Like, no shade if that's like what you choose to do. It's just like they're awfully similar to the Greek deities.
Very similar. Yeah. Well, that was lovely. And it brings us, we're so close to the bitter end, you guys. Like, we're here, and I'm doing the tarot scope this week. So, again, we're using these really fun cards that are like the kitty cat zodiac. So, this week, I got Sagittarius.
Which is so cute.
Which is so cute.
Little kitty with a bow and arrow.
And it looks like we may have been right about me getting to share some kinder and gentler news.
God damn it. That means I'm going to get to be the bad guy now, though. Ugh, fine. It's your turn.
It is. It is. And it's almost my birthday. So
you're right. How dare I?
How dare you? But for this week, we've drawn Sagittarius, the Five of Wands reversed. So I would say this is kind of good news. So for you fiery centaur babes, this week, you're maybe coming to the end of this like prolonged period of like strife, tension, and arguing. And regardless of if you won or lost, you finally have time to like take a breath. And I think it's like, you know, if it's a victory lap, enjoy it. If it's not, the recommendation here is to still kind of like lean into it, you guys. Like lean into it a little bit. Take the opportunity to rest. You've obviously been through some shit recently, and you know, like it's okay to take that kind of time and savor it even. Like savor rest, savor relaxation, because you've obviously need it.
I like that because you obviously need it.
Because you obviously need it.
I understand what you're saying. It's just really sorry. I just thought that was funny. I'm a child.
But yeah, and you know, if it's a victory lap, enjoy it. If it's not, still enjoy it. Like at least you have this time to like find your center and
yeah,
like, take a fucking, you know, you have some space. You have some time to chill. So take it, please. Please take it. Please go to bed now. Do
it. Go to bed. Go to bed, Sagittarius. No, you can't take your bow and arrow to bed. That's how you get hurt in your sleep.
But well, I that's all I have for you guys. So like really just like rest up. Rest up is the vibe. And actually, you know, like Sagittarius moon here, I could not be tireder. So I think I'm gonna take that advice. For me as well.
Right. I love that. I love that.
But okay, so to all of you, you know, made up holiday lemony bitches, unnamed spring equinox holiday even, blessed unnamed spring equinox holiday bitches.
Blessed unnamed spring equinox holiday bitches. Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
Woo! Okay.